Hello, and welcome as we talk about applying for a Parks and Recreation Trust Fund grant. This guide will help you prepare your PARTF application. There'll be a series of videos. This is the first one. Video 1 is an overview of PARTF and the grant cycle. We'll also be doing several other videos that you can watch. Video 2 is required for all applications, so everyone applying for PARTF needs to review that video. Video 3 covers if you're doing development project, so you're requesting funds for construction and or renovation of a park facility. Video 4 is for acquisition projects, so this is what you need to review when you're requesting funds to purchase land, or if you're acquiring land through donation. Either of those apply. And finally, the last video, video 5, is an overview of the PARTF scoring system, and it reviews all the documents that you'll need to upload and definitions of the terms and terminology used with the PARTF information. So just kind of as an overview, if depending on your application type, is which videos you'll need to watch. So development only, make sure you watch the video 2 for all applications, the video for development, and the scoring system and definitions. If you're just doing acquisition, you're not planning to request any funds for development, please watch the all application video, acquisition, and then the scoring system and definitions. And finally, some applications will be a combination project where you do an acquisition and development, and then you will need to watch all 4 of the videos after you complete this one. So just to give you an overview of PARTF, and again, this is what you need to know to complete the application process. So the North Carolina Parks and Recreation Trust Fund, you can find out a lot more about it if you go to the NC State Parks website. They administer the trust fund, so ncparks.gov. Please, as we go through this process, if you haven't already, go to the PARTF grants page through more, and then the Parks and Recreation Trust Fund. And if you click on the link for applicants, you'll be able to download a copy of the application. And please have that with you as you go through all of these videos. It will be very helpful. Again, Recreation Resources Service, RRS, is here to help you and provide assistance. They'll be your first point of contact as you work through the application process, get feedback and review. And please go to our website at go.ncsu.edu/RRS and click on offices and staff to find your regional consultant. The application lists a lot of additional resources, so please go through those and click on the hyperlinks for other assistance that you might need specific to your particular project. Also, a lot of folks ask where PARTF funding comes from. The money is appropriated by the General Assembly. Funding amount is dependent on the state budget. So this past year, for example, we had 56 applications. However, we only had those applications requested $16.4 million in assistance from PARTF, but we only have $4.5 million available to award. So a total of 14 grants were awarded. So this surely it indicates that this is a very competitive process. So we want to make sure to help you develop a competitive grant. But keep in mind, depending on the amount of money appropriated, there's a lot of great projects, and we're certainly not able to fund all those based on the current amount allocated. So overview of the grant cycle. So right now we're at the start of it. October 1st is when the application is released. So that notice has been sent out. A lot of folks have downloaded it. The middle of next week in October, RRS provides these instructional videos that you're watching. So that gives you October through April to really prepare your application, send it to your consultant for review, and make sure you have all the documentation in order. May 1st is the application due date. And we'll talk about that a little more in a moment, but that's when everything needs to be submitted. And then in early summer, the scoring teams will begin to evaluate those applications, review them with the scoring system, and prepare information for the Parks Authority in late summer when they meet to make the selection of grants. And that means the contracts, if you are awarded a grant, usually aren't signed until the fall, so November time period. So that's a full year. So keep that in mind on how long it takes when you start preparing it to when you get funded. If you do get funded, when the contracts are signed, it would signal the start of the project period. So it could be a full year. So especially think about that on your timing and cost estimates, which we'll talk about in other videos. So again, just a reminder on key dates. October, Division of Parks and Recreation sends out notice that the funding is available, or the application is available, and what the schedule is. We make application videos available to explain this process. May 1st, 2020 is applications must be received or postmarked by 5 p.m. to the Division of State Parks in Raleigh. And this is new this year. In the past, you've been able to deliver them to regional offices with RRS or other locations. Moving forward, as we move to this digital application process, all applications need to be delivered to the Division of State Parks and Recreation in Raleigh, North Carolina. So it's at the Nature Research Center, the museum on Jones Street in downtown Raleigh. So this is where they must be delivered, either by mail and with one paper copy. The application checklist, that'll be a primary thing that you'll need to look at as we kind of go over the different topics through the different videos. Review the checklist instructions and notice on how it says exactly you need to prepare the application and submit it. The sections we have here correspond to the other 4 videos that you'll need as you prepare your application. You must submit a digital and a paper copy. The paper copy is your official application document. You want to make sure that it's paper clipped. You do not use staples, please. And make sure you have all the checklist items that are included. It will tell you how many of the paper copy. So notice there's several items that require 20 copies on the paper version. Make sure you submit those. Those are what is the Park Authority sees, so we want to make sure that they have the exact copies that you prepare. It'll tell you how to name the files as you save them as a PDF and submit it on a thumb drive. So you'll need one USB drive with your one paper copy as you submit it. So required of all applications, then it'll have the file name in parentheses. So you'll need to, in this case, you'll see checklist is noted there. And as you go through each item, you'll see which page in the application that item is referenced. So if you want to learn more about description and justification, you'll need to look on this page number. Some things may not be applicable. So if you're not building anything on school property where a joint use agreement is required, you will not need to submit that. Some things may not be available. So perhaps you don't have a comprehensive system-wide plan, then it would not be available and would not be applicable to your application. Here's a good example when we talked about the checklist and naming. Here's an example of what was on a thumb drive delivered with the application in previous years. You'll notice that each thing is just simply named by the checklist. This is the checklist, basic facts here, justification here. So use this naming convention. And in this case, the applicant actually put the numbers going along the side here, and that was very helpful with the numbering system. It keeps it in order. So as we review, over 50 or more applications digitally, it helps us keep those in order. And it's easy to look through and review your application efficiently. The other thing in the overview is who is eligible to apply for PARTF. So counties and incorporated municipalities are eligible. Some authorities are. So if you are an authority, if recreation is part of your mission, please check with your consultant and we can confirm if you are eligible to apply. Joint applications are eligible as well. So again, please contact your consultant if you think you'll have a joint application, because there's a little more complexity in the paperwork that's required. Projects that are eligible for funding are land acquisition and or development on a single site. So for example, we want to provide a grant that will fund new playgrounds at 5 different parks across your community. It has to be on one project site. You can ask for up to $500,000. That's the max. You can do anything below that, but every grant is a dollar for dollar match. So if you ask for $500,000, you need to match it with $500,000. So it would be $1 million project. You can overmatch. Appraised value of donated land may be used as the sponsor's match. So if there's a chance that you might have someone's offering to donate land to you, whatever that value is of that land can count as your match. So if that's the situation which you think may apply, watch the acquisition video, but also contact your RRS consultant so we can discuss that a little more. A lot of folks ask if in-kind services like labor or volunteer work, if that can be used. It cannot be used as part of your match. Certainly that's something that's encouraged. It can help you lower cost in other areas that you can spend the funds in other ways as you develop the park. The other key item is that PARTF requires that the project be public recreational use. So it has to be a public park and facility. So if you acquire property, if PARTF pays for or your donated property, it's an acquisition project, then that land becomes dedicated in perpetuity for public recreational use. That's important to know. Facilities that are built or renovated with a PARTF grant must be used, those facilities must be used for public recreational use for 25 years. So you're required to keep those maintained for the next 25 years. The question everyone asks about is how are applications evaluated and selected? So there's two parts. Evaluation is done by the PARTF staff scoring teams. So that's the teams from Recreation Resources Service and the Division of State Parks, the grant program. We work on teams and we review the scoring system based on the application documents that are submitted with your official application. We'll also conduct site inspections prior to the award, and that's just to kind of make sure we know what the site looks like and evaluate that with what's being proposed to develop. And then again, as the scoring team meets, we meet for several days and review all the applications and come to a consensus agreement on what the final scores are for each one. And we make sure we do a very good job of making sure that is equitable across all of the submissions. Decisions are made the same for every application. The selection part of grants is from the Parks and Recreation Authority. Factors that they consider based on law, on the administrative rules, are they use the project description and justification that you submit. The applicant's rank based on the scoring system. That's one factor. The other factor is they must look at geographic distribution of funds. So they need to spread the money out across the state. Also consider the population of the applicant, so that it goes to small communities and large communities. It needs to be spread out. And also we look at previous grant administrations. You want to make sure that your grants, if you have any active grants, that you complete those on time and that you're completing as the contract was signed. We're building everything we said we were going to build. And keep that in mind as you apply for this one. You're going to be, if you're awarded, committed to doing that. Because poor grant administration is a factor that's considered, and if you haven't done well at administering previous grants, there's a chance it might not be awarded due to that, or it's a consideration. The amount of funds requested and the amount of funds available are also a factor, and as you saw this past year from that snapshot, we only had $1 for every $4 requested. And going back to geographic distribution, the Parks Authority uses the North Carolina Prosperity Zones to evaluate geographic distribution of grant awards. So trying to hit all of those regions, depending on if we have applicants from each of those regions, that is considered. So a lot of folks look at, these are our RRS regions, so they're much more randomly drawn. Those are not what's the geographic distribution that's looked at. And also note what the requirements are if you are awarded a grant. So applicants, if you receive a grant, are given the grants manual, which goes in much more detail and is available on the State Parks website, on what are the requirements. You need to sign the contract. Project periods do not start until a contract signed by the state and by the local government. A let you know on how to start the project. This is a reimbursement grant program, so know that you will need to spend money first. Turn in those invoices, and then you'll be reimbursed 50% of that, since it's a 50-50 match. So you can request funds quarterly. Some applicants have waited and done like a final reimbursement, or first and final. Others, you may need that income stream. So as you get through the first three months, you have a good number of expenses, you can submit those to your recreation consultant with RRS, and they'll work with you on, and we'll do an accounting workshop too on how to track all of your documentation and expenditures for the grant. Audits and inspections occur throughout the grant period. So at 6 months, we're checking in with you, and then annual inspections are done just to make sure everything is moving along as described or as required in the contract. Everything's built to ADA standards, and just making sure everything's moving forward, and you'll complete it within the grant period, which is a 3-year grant period. So we want to make sure everybody completes it on time, and your grant administration is done very well. So finally, when you complete it, hopefully you'll get to this point where you're having a ribbon cutting, get your PARTF signed, invite everybody out there and celebrate your new park. So I've mentioned Recreation Resources Service a few times. So in the back of the application, you will see the contact list with the email, phone numbers, the contact information. So I'm Charlene Smith. I'm Director of Recreation Resources Service, and we have 4 consultants across the state. Judy Francis serves the Western region. Her office is in Asheville. Ray King serves the Central West region. Jen Beadle Munley has the Central East region. They are both housed at NC State at our main office, and Brittany Ship serves our Eastern region, and her office is at Hammocks Beach State Park. So again, these are your first points of contact: getting information, getting assistance with your grant, answering any questions that you have. So that wraps up our first video with the overview of the PARTF and the grant cycle. The next video, video 2, is required for all applications, so make sure you watch that, and definitely the scoring video at the end. But again, any assistance you need, visit our RRS website at go.ncsu.edu/RRS. Thank you.